Let's get salty!
Hey everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video and mind control tech. Did you know that this is actually in the core set? It's now like not even offered in Arena where it was driving people crazy. But if you played Hearthstone back when it launched, it didn't really look like this. It wasn't 5 mana, it was actually 3 mana. And you could take a minion at random rather than just taking whatever you want if your opponent has 4 more minions. But I don't want to talk about that 3 mana version. Did you know that this card actually was even more different back in the alpha and beta days before Hearthstone officially launched? I want to go through a bunch of different cards from back in the old days that didn't just get a mana change. There's lots of cards that lost mana or gained mana, gained attack and health. No, cards that outright, their effects are completely different, and there's a lot of them, and you might not know about them, and it's kind of interesting to see how some of them have kind of emerged in other forms over time. And if you enjoy the content on the channel, if you like, I've earned your subscription, please hit that sub button down below. Give the video a like, it helps us out a lot as we're on the road to 83,000 subscribers. So you might be asking yourself, what was mind control originally? How could it possibly be more tilting than taking one of my minions at random if I have 4 or more? Well, it used to just be a 3 mana 3/3 battle cry. Swap this with a random enemy minion. That's right. If your opponent just had one like Ragnaros on the board, you played this, they got the mind control tech, you got the Ragnaros, and this was just always a steal at some point. And I guess it was a little too good, a little bit too frustrating. And now we have it like the form of like Reska, I guess. I can't imagine what Hearthstone would have looked like if they didn't go through with that change. Xavius, formerly known as Illidan Stormrage, used to be, well, Illidan, he was, he had the whole different art and all of that, but that's not the only change. That wasn't the rework I'm talking about. He used to cost 1 more. He used to be a 7/7. This would have been one of the most complained about cards in Classic if it never changed, because he had Battle Cry. Both players discard 3 cards and draw 3 cards. Similar, I guess, to current day Rin, who kind of does something a little bit similar these days. And yeah, it's just a kind of a troll card, a disruption card, where you can mill your opponent and get rid of cards, which is something they really strayed away from back in the day. They did not want people to be able to manipulate other people's hands. They just saw it as something that's not particularly fun. Players don't like it. And well, we've seen it pop up here and there, but it's usually attached to a pretty expensive effect, or, Mind Render Lucia, which got absolutely destroyed. Speaking of cards that stole or disrupted other people's cards, we have Mind Vision, which you might be wondering, that's not really the same. 1 mana, put a copy of a random card in your opponent's hand into your hand. This card used to be much different in the early days of Alpha. It was actually 4 mana, and it didn't put a copy of a random card in your opponent's hand into your hand. You just stole the card. You yoinked a card at random from your opponent's hand. It got nerfed eventually to 6 mana and then buffed or changed to this 1 mana version we know today. It was basically a Theotar, but no Discover at random. And yes, not fun, very frustrating. And then, yeah, they made Theotar, and like, you think you would learn from the past, but apparently somebody missed the memo on that, and I'm very glad this card got changed. How annoying would that have been? Next, we have the WoW Hubs card of choice, the Lore Walker Cho. Pretty memey card, has always been that way. A bit of a mill rogue style card where whenever a player casts a spell, put a copy into the other player's hand. But this card used to be completely different. It was like a card draw engine. It was 1 mana and had 3 health, and read, if you end your turn without playing a card, draw a card. So you play it on 1, I guess was the idea, and then turn 2 you could just pass and draw a card. I guess better than life tap in that way. And if it's not killed, you could just, I guess, do nothing and pass. You could, I guess, hero power, you could do that. As long as you didn't play a card, you would draw more. But not amazing, and they just completely reworked it into something different, but kind of crazy to think such an iconic meme style card had a completely different design back in the day. Next, we have Sylvanas Windrunner, who's one of the most iconic legendary cards in Hearthstone history. Not exactly playable in today's game. I think she's in the core set Regardless, 6 mana 5/5 minion death roll, take control of a random enemy minion. She used to cost 5 in the beta, have the same effect, but well before that, in the alpha stages of Hearthstone, she was a 5 mana 5/5 that would discard your hand, and then you would draw, I guess, or add 5 3/3 skeletons. You would get those in your hand, and basically it was like a kind of an aggro reload card where you play all your cards and then you play Sylvanas and get a bunch of skeletons. She was eventually completely reworked into what she is today, but it is crazy to think of such an iconic legendary being so much different than what she ended up being. Prophet Velen, a pretty iconic card for Priest, although has not really seen much play since I think it was Cloning Gallery left standard. 7 mana, 7/7 legendary to double the damage and healing of your spells and hero power during, I believe, alpha or beta. It ended up getting the hero power added. It was just spells at first, but before that, again, card in very early alpha stage, completely different, absolutely different card. It was a 7 mana 5/7 battle cry. Draw a card for each undamaged character. I'm assuming it's all characters. I don't really have clarification. I can't find much on this, but yeah, if I guess your hero was unhurt, or maybe your opponent was unhurt, or the minions on the board, just draw cards. It was a pretty good draw engine. And again, back in the early days, they really hit card draw hard. They did not have a lot of great draw options, so this was changed. Even though it's 7 mana, you have to remember Ancient of Lore was a 7 mana 5/5 draw 2 cards. That got nerfed to 1 card. So yeah, this could have been pretty darn impactful. Instead, it became a big finisher, the Mind Blast, which did become a thing. And it is crazy to think, again, how different these cards were. Another one that actually has changed recently, Tyrion Forgeling, used to be a 6/6, but that's not what we're talking about now. He didn't used to give you that really cool iconic weapon. He was, again, incredibly different. He's always had Divine Shield and Taunt. However, as an 8 mana 6/6, he had a battle cry of draw a card for each enemy minion. So you could draw 7 cards with this, in theory, for 8 mana. That would have been quite different, quite, just a completely different style of card where maybe your opponent doesn't want to play minions because you're going to draw a bunch, and Paladin, who only had Divine Favor back in the day, and I guess Lay on Hands, would have had quite the card draw engine, probably, you would think, maybe a little bit, and it's a taunt that protects you while drawing cards, so that would have been a very interesting one, how that would have played out. Aldor Peacekeeper, again, another iconic card for Paladin, 3 mana 3/3 battle cry, change an enemy minions attack to 1. Didn't used to do that at all. It's actually a card that we see in today's game, or have seen in today's game, but worse, but also a bit better. It was still a 3 mana 3/3. However, this would give adjacent minions Divine Shield, which would have been incredibly powerful back in the day. Again, we have that Finale card now that also has Divine Shield, that also does that. But again, for 3 mana, that would have been incredible. That would have been super strong in Classic and all of that. But I love this card as just a cool combo with Stampede and Kodo and things like that. Those were actually meta. Imagine that at 8 mana, remove a minion was a good thing back in the day. But yeah, Aldor Peacekeeper, yet again, another very different card. Emperor Cobra. Yes, this card got changed. It's a 3 mana 2/3 right now with Poisonous, and basically that keyword means that if it attacks something, it damages it or whatever, it will kill it. It'll murder it. And that's kind of been always the plan for the card, but it was reworked. Originally, it was a 3 mana 0/1, a 0/1 that had plus attack equal to the number of mana crystals you have. So you have a full hand, you have a bunch of attack, and the idea was super fragile minion that can maybe kill something. Although Tundra Rhino could give this charge, although I don't think it was a beast back in the, it's hard to tell. Regardless, it got changed, and probably for the better, although this card has never really seen much play. Tink Master Overspark, a card that actually did say play in Classic, absolutely, in this current state of 3 mana 3/3, Battlecry, transform another random minion into a 5/5 Devil Soar, or a 1/1 squirrel. So either one of these beasts, that cute, adorable squirrel. And yeah, this actually saw play in Classic, mainly concealed auctioneers, can't interact with them in any other way. However, this card used to be quite a bit better. It was a 2/2 instead, and instead of a random minion, you could just transform whatever the heck you wanted. So it was like a neutral polymorph effect. It was either going to be a 5/5 or a 1/1, but you got to transform that card, although ironically, you wouldn't be able to hit that Stealth Auctioneer, so it would have been worse against that. But overall, yeah, they didn't really want that neutral polymorph option, and we haven't really seen too much of that since that I can think of, but overall, yeah, probably the right change back in the day. And well, one of the cards you might want to have transformed is the original Edwin Van Cleef, not this one, the one that most of us are pretty familiar with, the 3-mana 2/2 combo, gain +2/+2 for each other card you've played this turn. The card was basically the same, however, it was a 1/1, and it had stealth. It actually originally had stealth. And can you imagine? You remember that rogue location that got nerfed and also lost its stealth? Blizzard, why didn't you learn? I'm glad they made that change because this was one of the most busted cards in Standard for basically the whole time I was there, and actually nerfed to 4 for like 2 months before it got Hall of Fame to WoW. But can you imagine when with stealth? I'm glad that didn't happen after Alpha. My God. Nat Pagel, another pretty awful legendary compared to Gold Panner these days. It's pretty rough. 2-mana 0/4 at the start of your turn. You have a 50% chance to draw an extra card. Not only did this actually have more health back in the day, it was a 0/5, making it really hard to kill early. It was much better as it read at the end of your turn, you have a 50% chance to draw an extra card. Really hard minion to kill in the early game, and getting 50% chance to draw that card was pretty darn crazy. And as I mentioned, card draw valued an absolute premium in the early days of Hearthstone, where now every card draws a card, generates a card, or multiple cards. So they did end up changing it, and I think Crazed Alchemist would have been a very, very meta card if that didn't happen. Blood Imp, a Warlock demon, has never seen a ton of play. It's a 1-mana 0/1 demon with stealth. At the end of your turn, give another random friendly minion +1 health. This card used to be really good, really strong, so much they had to change it and pretty much rework it, where it used to be a 1/1, so had better stats, and instead of adding like +1 health randomly, it just gave an aura effect. Your other minions have +1 health. So you have this minion you could attack with or whatever at any point, but it was also a constant effect of just giving your minions that incremental +1 health, being really hard to kill. I can't even imagine, like Zoo, one of the best archetypes during Classic, having this around would have been absolutely nuts. So they did change it, thankfully, and actually hasn't seen a heck of a lot of play since. Warsong Commander has gone arguably through the most fundamental changes of any card ever. It's currently at its basic launch point when the game launched. Whenever you summon a minion with 3 or less attack, give it charge. We all know the whole +1 attack on charge minions, and that it eventually, whenever you summoned any minion, you gave it rush. But way back in Alpha, this card, unbelievably broken. It just read, your minions have charge. That's it. If you played a minion, it got charge. Molten Giant, it got charge. Anything got charge with this. It was one of those busted, insane cards ever. And it's funny to think how many changes it's gone through. The fact it could just give any minion charge. Can you imagine if that was like that in the game, like now or at any point? It would have been just ridiculous. But I remember just seeing old footage. I think it was like day 9, going for like a wombo combo where he played Molten Giant, Brewmaster, Molten Giant, Brewmaster, Molten Giant, and like was like that off of killing his opponent, like 60 health, and then his opponent did the same thing back. It was just ridiculous. I wish I could find that footage. Maybe someone could link it in the comments below if they have anywhere idea. I know I saw that video somewhere, but yes, this card, unbelievably insane back in the day. And I'll leave off with Naturalize, the 1-mana spell for Druid. Destroy a minion. Your opponent draws 2 cards. This card was not a card in the very early alpha stage of the game. They actually ended up changing a significant amount of cards to like completely rework. Like Priest has like 5 cards that were like completely different back in the day. We might have a follow-up video on that if this one does well. But an example of that, this card actually completely replaced another card that was called Demoralizing Roar. 1 mana, enemy minions get -3 attack this turn, which also got remade, I believe, as a priest card called Pint-Sized Potion way later in the game. And yeah, again, another card. Not so much this one was reworked, it was more of a replacement. But yeah, maybe we'll talk about some replacement cards in the future, because Hearthstone Alpha and Beta, there's just so much stuff I had no idea about that's pretty darn cool. Anyways, let me know in the comments down below what you think of all these and all these different changes. Any ones that I may have missed. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day and stay salty, my friends.